right? So I think that nowadays there's a fear of death. And when I was in Ghana, you see all the corruption that was going on, and I was interviewing different people in the land, in the urban city Accra, and a lot of times it was just like, oh, well, we're a peaceful nation. I said, well, do you think that you have peace if you're struggling to survive? Is that peaceful to you? Does that seem like peace because you just choose not to address the situation? So there's a distortion of what government systems and legal systems and leaders are supposed to be alongside. And then because the education system has been destroyed and obliterated and then switched out to something else, people don't know any better as to how to challenge the system in an appropriate way for people to advocate for themselves and their own interests and their communal interests. And then now you have the effects of globalization, right? You have the effects of globalization on these urban areas across the continent of Africa, which is causing people to become a little bit more individualistic, right? And that's changing the culture a bit of Africa, right? So now it'll be a little bit harder for people to want to be more communal and to address corrupt presidents or corrupt government systems, because now they're emulating this same corruption. That's something I noticed. And it's a crazy cycle, honestly. Unless we do something about it, unless like we start educating people from a young age, like it's able to be done if we have to be on the ground, we have to work with each other, we have to see each other as a unit, like not only from Africa, but Africans around the world, we have to come together. Like this has to be this group consciousness that we create, like having this type of dialogue. How powerful is this? And then whoever's going to listen to it, right?
Because now you look at the time of Marcus Garvey, you see the kind of energy that man invested in the project. This is a guy that was fully sure of what he wanted. Beginning also from that time, looking at also the time that we live in today, I don't know if the African diaspora is engaging enough to be able to challenge the status quo. Because like you said, no, we cannot always be afraid of death. I always say, that you are going to die, there is no way about it. No one is going to make it alive. If you are alive, it means your journey is not yet completed. You are going to die at a point. What are you going to die for? Because what I think the European politicians do often is that they scare our politicians, because most of them that come into a position of authority, they are not really qualified, no? They usually have skeleton in their cupboard. Most of them are not really clean as it were, no? Because they are not really representing the people. They are there because they want to serve the interests of some other persons. And for them to be sure that you are serving the interest, it's like you are going to sell your soul somewhere, and it is difficult for you to retrieve it back. Whereas you were supposed to make sure that your soul is on the land where you are. They create the confusion so that they can manage the people in the confusion.
Yeah, that's perfectly said. They create confusion to manage people in confusion, because that's the only way you can operate in this type of chaos, is to cause confusion with everybody. And especially in the age of media, like, or age of information, as people like to say, like it just causes a lot of confusion because so many people are able to have their voices heard in different ways. And a lot of times people aren't educated enough to know what they're talking about, but they're still talking, right? So it definitely is. And then also, it's just that the leaders oftentimes, or these government systems, are agents of colonial powers or neo-colonial powers, if you want to say that. But they're just agents, right? They're not agents for Africa. So they are protecting their people, but their people aren't African anymore. They may look African, but that's not their people. Their people are now white people, because that's what he views. Like leaders, I've realized, like some African leaders, like they view their master still as the white man, and that's who they're working for. Like they're also victims of psychological trauma, like that's what they're going through. It's almost like a mental illness, right? That's what we need to start talking about, though. We need to start talking about African people not working in their own interest as a mental illness. People wanting to leave Africa and go work for these white entities versus trying to figure out solutions in their community as one. is a mental illness. And that's how it needs to be narrated, because it is. No other groups of people really do that but us, you know? So I think changing that narrative in a way where people think of it as a disease to want to benefit people outside their community or people outside their family would get people to start thinking and wanting to heal that and change that. So
Mhm. There's another thing I was also reflecting about shortly, which is if you go around and try to maybe read about Africa, you see a lot of Europeans have become expert on Africa. In Italy, they will be called mio Africa, meaning my Africa. So they look at Africa like their own property. And when they do this, they look at it as if it were a plot of land, just a small piece of land, like a very minute village. Why did we give this opportunity to other people to be telling our story instead of us be the one controlling the narration?
yeah, it's nonsensical. I'll tell you this. In university, you have a lot of Europeans, people from the UK, Germany, I think I said this previously, that are quote unquote experts in Africa or teaching about Africa, or you even have diplomats that are meant to go into Africa. And really, the whole diplomat exchange into Africa is not, it has nothing to do with Africa. It's really about how can we get what we want out of Africa the best way we can. I can't say his name, but I actually met an ambassador who was teaching on African relations. And it was really interesting because he had no concern for Africa at all. His only concern was, how can this benefit the United States? How can this turmoil going on in this African country right now benefit the US and its trade and business? And that's the reality. And you can think of it the same as this white Africanist, right? They're doing the same thing. How can I learn as much as possible about this indigenous culture and, let's say, Nigeria, and then use it for my own benefit? Let me, create a book on it, make profit off of it, tell stories, change stories, distort it, and then, basically exploiting our intellectual property, our culture, our history, our languages, and things like that. And the only way to change it is to start encouraging our own people to write their own stories and write their own narratives. And it's not like it hasn't been done. It's just that we haven't, as a people, been pushing it enough, or been trying to change the narrative as possible. And like I said, I think that it also has to do with like a disease, essentially. Like there used to be a point in time where, like, for example, in America, there used to be a point in time where African Americans were teaching each other because they had to, right? Because of segregation. And then once integration happened, something switched. Now, African Americans thought that it would be better for them to learn in white schools for some reason. No, that wasn't the solution. But that's what they thought. They thought them being included in the system of their oppressor would make things better for some reason.
And why would the oppressor give you the kind of education that will liberate you? Has someone thought about that?
Exactly. That's the question that should have been asked. But I think people were so excited to just be accepted by their oppressor, by their abuser. It's literally like being in an abusive relationship. Like when your abuser finally shows you like a little bit of love, then you're happy to be with them again, right? Despite everything that's happened in the past. And that's the situation that we're in now. But we're able to change that. And I think that we're getting there. I think that we are getting there, and we have to keep encouraging that. Like, I know someone in Nigeria currently who encourages Africans in Nigeria to tell their stories via podcasts and to write books. Like, they have a whole publishing sector that they're creating, and just teaching the young people to embrace who they are, embrace what they got going on. And that's really what we have to do, from our own African concept, not from a foreign concept, but our own African concept that's going to push and liberate our own people. Like, we have to get back to the roots. We have to get back to our history, essentially.